Like, what moment did you realize, like, man, I'm kind of good at cycling? You know what I mean? Like, I might want to do this.
Um, yeah, well, when I was 15, it was more. When it was 15, I was more in the youth circuit. So a lot of the courses in the UK, and partly why it's different to Europe, is when we're a youth and in under 14, under 16 categories. Um, we don't really have any road races, or we're not out on challenging courses. Which for me, when I was probably 45 kilos at that age, that's where I wanted to be. So it was a lot of like criterium racing, max 1 hour races. So yeah, at that point I wasn't really very competitive. I kind of raced to my strengths. I did some time trials, did some hill climbs, and I was competitive in that. And um, yeah, felt as though could get to a good level, but wasn't really focused too much on the long term. I was just like, I'm enjoying racing my bike here. I enjoy the training side of it. Yeah, it wasn't like I was fully committed to a career at that point by any means. I was focused on my school more than anything. Um, and then yeah, once we got to the junior categories, I spent my first year as a junior away on AG to our under 19 team, um, and had a really tough year. I had a big accident in May of that year in 2022, and just yeah, I was probably way out of my depth in terms of racing on the continent at that point. Very inexperienced. I was in a very tough environment. I didn't particularly enjoy that year racing with that team. I was very close to like just stopping racing at that point and riding my bike for fun. But then sort of came back after my crash. I didn't race for the team again. I was back racing for my local club at like a national level in the UK. Um, and did the Junior Tour of Mendips and Junior Tour of Wales at the end of that year. Started to really enjoy racing my bike again, and then um, the two gents that run Zappi Junior Race Team reached out to me and said, we've got an opportunity for you to race with us at Trofeo Buffoni in Italy in September. So I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. And yeah, jumped into that. I had a pretty shit day on the bike, to be honest with you. I was tactically completely balls the race up, but was all of a sudden in a really nice environment with some British guys that I got on really well with. A DS that believed in us, and all of a sudden it was a different side of the sport that I hadn't seen before at that level. And long story short, I got offered a contract with Zappi for the next year, and that's where I really thought, yeah, maybe I can make something out of this.
So, how did you get in contact with Quick Step? Did they reach out to your director? And were any other teams trying to sign you as well during that time when you made that transition to the pro level, world tour level?
Yeah, it's a stressful period. I think a lot of people don't probably see that side of the sport, um, and how much of for especially the, let's say, mid-tier riders that are fighting for contracts, you don't see that element of panic or stress that comes at the end of the year when you still haven't got something sorted. And yeah, often obviously you won't hear about those stories, but for me, when it was June or July time, I was already hearing that a lot of the development teams were filling up of spaces. And um, yeah, I was, by the time I got to July, August, I was like, I still haven't got anything sorted. I'm definitely not going to uni this year. Like, if it gets to September and I still haven't got anything, what am I going to do with myself for at least 12 months? Um, and so, yeah, I finished my school exams in July, had nothing sorted. A lot of my teammates did have something sorted. And I was like, I really need to get a result here. Otherwise, yeah, it's not going to be a good year for me. Um, and then it got to August. I'd had like a good season, consistent results, especially compared to last year. And I'd finished every race I'd started, which was a big goal of mine. But yeah, I didn't have like a standout result. And in the year group I was coming up with, there was a lot of really talented guys getting results early. So it was an incredibly competitive age group and year. And then Tour of Wales, kind of out of the blue, I had two wins there. One of which was on the tumble, which was, yeah, probably the one race in the UK that the teams from the continent will look at and say, if you're winning there, then yeah, the Palmares of the race in that stage has produced a lot of good winners in the past that have then gone on to had good world tour careers. And so when I won that, then that's when everything kind of changed for the better, and there was a lot more interest from other development teams. And then, yeah, as I said, I went on to Trevor Buffoni for the second year in a row, and then came second there, and that was like the backup result that I needed on the continent to show these teams that I can do it in Europe. And then, yeah, that's when Quick Step reached out to me. It's mainly like a personal thing, but I had an agent representing me at the time, and yeah, once they came knocking, it was a no-brainer for me. I was over the moon. So
Yeah, man, I was gonna ask, like, how did that feel? Because Quickstep, we know, like Julian Alaphilippe, Remco, all these big name riders ride for that team. I mean, how did you feel? Like, did you get to talk to somebody personally on the team when they made the call, or was it just all through your agent?
um, yeah, I mean, a lot of the teams will go to you personally, and yeah, I just reached out. The scout there who had brought was responsible for bringing Alaphilippe into the team 8 or 9 years ago, whenever it was. Um, Reached out to me on Instagram while I was sat in the airport, and I was like, "Oh shit, okay, here we go." Had a call with him, obviously. Uh, yeah, asked the questions that I had, but at that point, I was pretty sold on where I was going to be going. Um, and yeah, it was obviously had a really the team, the Quick Step Devo, had a really successful year the year before, and had like 4 or 5 guys going up to the World Tour team straight away. So when you're looking at a team and you see that they're not only investing in their riders, but then taking them onto the World Tour step and keeping everything in house, that's kind of what you want to look for. You don't want to be, yeah, saying another team where they're just buying in riders from other Devo teams, or then it gets a bit messy. Like having that clear path forward was something that was important to me. Um, so yeah, then it was all done pretty quickly, and a month later, I was in Belgium at the team days for all the kit fitting and stuff like that.
So, what type of expectations did they place on you when you came into the team? And like, talk to us about walk us through the process. Is it you need to get results right away? Or they focus more on a long-term view of trying to bring you along slowly?
Um, no, it's very much it was very much a long term view. I think one thing that I was impressed um, with the team is how they said, "Look, I had a 2 year contract with them." And yeah, they were very much learn as much as you can in the first year. That we're not worried about results. Like you're not going to get kicked off the team if you don't get results. Um, just learn as much as you can in the first year, and then in the second year, then we'll obviously look for more performance and more race results. But for the first year, just learn the category. It's a big step up. Obviously, you're racing probably 60, 70K more each day and longer stage races. You know, you've got to be like fully committed into the lifestyle. You're racing against guys that are 22 years old as you come out of the junior ranks. So it's yeah, a big step up, and the team are really good about that. They said, don't worry about results. The kind of caveat to that is obviously you're in a team where we had one of the like best signings of the year come in, and everyone's getting results from day one. So although the team might not be putting pressure on you, if you see teammates that are alongside of you getting really good results from day one, all of a sudden that pressure might not come from the team, but from yourself. You're like, the bottom line is I'm competing with these guys for that spot in 2 years' times. So yeah, the pressure comes from yourself that if they're performing early, then you need to perform as well. Um, and so it was always managing that. I wouldn't say it was never a toxic environment or anything like that. I got on with the guys really well. I think it's a bit of a weird dynamic when you're all competing for the same thing, but your teammates at the same time. There's not many sports that are like that, I suppose. Yeah, Formula One or something like that, where you're sort of direct rivals with your teammate. But it was still a really nice environment to be off the bike, and I made some good friends there.
So then talk to us about like the moment that you decided it was time to step away essentially from your dream job, and then why you decided to go through with that decision.
Um, it was a variety of factors. I think, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of safety concerns I had for the sport. You know, in the lot, I don't know exactly the time frame, but when there's riders that you've raced against that year that die in competition, you have to really step back and go, what's being done to counteract that? And maybe you can accept the risk if you know that the governing body's doing all it can to protect the riders and their well-being. But I was like, I don't think that's happening at all. And so mentally, how can you manage that risk? I found really difficult. And I don't think it's taken seriously enough. I think thankfully now we're getting some riders speak out about it, but we need a lot more change from the UCI before we get anywhere near I don't want to say safe sport, because cycling's one of those sports that is always going to be inherently dangerous, but I think there is a lot of things that we can do to make a big difference to riders, and probably with very minimal input from the UCI and minimal cost. So that was one side of things. Like, all of a sudden, if people are having serious injuries and dying from races that I'm partaking in, is this really a future I want to pursue? And then there was kind of a separate side of things where I probably hadn't imagined when I was going through the junior ranks what that lifestyle would be mentally. And yeah, as I said in my Instagram post, cycling's really a roller coaster. Some of the highs that I felt from the sport have been probably the best moments of my life, like coming across the line in the tumble or at Trofeo Buffoni last year. It's a feeling that's really hard to beat because it sucks for 99% of the time. Like, you win a football match and yeah, okay, you'll be happy that you've won the football match, but you know roughly you're going to win 50% of the time, maybe a bit more if you're a really good side, maybe a bit less if you're not a good side. But with cycling, even if you're really good, okay, discount Pogacar because he's off the scale, but even if you're a really good professional cyclist, you might only win 1% of the time. So the feeling when you do win is incredible. It's like a feeling I didn't know that was possible. But that comes with the lows of the sport, which often you don't see. And I think mentally, when I was, especially at that first part of the season, to be a cyclist, you have to be 100% a cyclist. For maybe 2 weeks of the year, you can focus on other things in your life, but especially as a rider trying to make it in the sport, and I by far and away don't think I'm the most talented rider that was in my team. I think I always felt as though I had to work 100% committed with no imperfections in my training. Like, I kind of went into it with the approach that if this is something I want to do, I want to commit myself 100% to, and focus on every marginal gain I can get. Maybe that was the wrong attitude to go into it, to be honest with you. Maybe I needed to be a bit more relaxed, but I think that's just who I am. And so that sort of mental stimulation side of it never really came. Like, if you're always focused on cycling and your life is cycling, whether you're on or off the bike, you're thinking about how you can improve your performance in a race, then that's quite a hard place to be mentally. And for me, I lost the fun in racing. I wasn't really excited to go to these races, and when those emotions come over, it's not really fair or honest to yourself to keep going and keep pursuing that. And the main question for me was, do I dream of becoming a professional cyclist anymore? Having seen what I've seen of the sport and having seen what I've seen of rider well-being, rider safety, just rider general life enjoyment, no. So for me, that was the main question that I had to ask myself, and that was something that took a lot of time because I didn't want it just to be. I didn't want to make a decision in a low point. I wanted to give myself like a fair bit of decision-making time, and I did that, and the decision didn't change. So at that point, it was quite an easy step out.
And then how did Quick Step respond when you finally came to the decision, like, hey, I'm going to step away from the sport, and you had to make that phone call and let them know that, basically it's a wrap?
Yeah, no, they were really good with it. I think obviously very surprised, which would be expected. But they were very accommodating. They fully understood my decision, and yeah, I think they respected it and understood it to probably a bigger extent than I expected them to. I've got absolutely no qualms with the team and how it's run. They were very understanding of my position. and ultimately they don't want to keep an unhappy rider who's not enjoying themselves. So um, yeah, in the end, it was not a big deal from their side of things. Like obviously they were keen to understand my reasoning and if I would be open to staying or if there was some changes that could be made for me to stay. But I'd made my decision at that point, and yeah, they fully understood that.
What kind of advice would you give maybe younger cyclists who are on a similar pathway as you, trying to become a professional cyclist? I mean, I'm sure a lot of people want to be, whether it be a World Tour pro cyclist or a gravel pro cyclist. Like, what advice would you give somebody who's trying to come up through the ranks as you did?
Um, Take it one step at a time. I think it's very easy for me to say just enjoy riding a bike and don't worry about the pressures, and that's certainly what I'd advise anyone who's under a junior category to say. Like, you know, these development teams shouldn't be looking at youth results or um, yeah, I'm speaking from a British experience growing up. Like, just enjoy riding a bike in these under 14, under 16 categories. Don't worry about um, yeah, focusing on your performance, or just try and cross the line first and learn as much as you can about racing. Um, Once you get into junior categories, I'd say try and find a coach that believes in a long term plan for you. And I was very lucky from quite early on in my cycling career, and when I was before doing a bit of running and triathlon, I found a coach that I've been working with for 7 years now. Um, and yeah, someone I trust with everything. So I think that's a very powerful relationship that you can build if you can find a coach that um, understands your objectives and your long term goals. And then in junior, it's where you've got to probably start working and seeing if you enjoy that lifestyle. I'd say certainly don't put it at the cost of your education. If you're a junior, there's no rush there. These are 17, 18-year-old kids that a lot of the time, need to be focused more on their education than racing bikes. Because even if you're a really good cyclist, let's say you have a career until you're 30, you're not going to have enough money to retire on unless you're probably in the top 20% of cyclists at the World Tour. So even then, you're going to need some form of education, and even during your career, like the education you'll get from school that will help you to make important decisions around your career, and at the end of the day, cycling's a business, so it's not a career that doesn't require some form of intelligence and knowledge of those environments around you. Um, and then yeah, if you're really enjoying your racing and doing well in these junior races, then I'd say you need experience in Europe. Racing experience in Europe is where the teams are going to be scouting from to make that step up to under 23. And then yeah, if you're good enough, you'll make it. Is what I would say at the end of the day. Like, um, if you sell yourself well as a junior and you get onto one of these under 23 teams, then that's when I'd say your performance will speak for yourself. And I don't have much advice to offer beyond there because that's as far as I got. So I have to ask someone else that made it all the way. But yeah, just enjoy riding your bike. Don't take it too seriously when you're a junior. Those are probably some of the most fun experience I've had when I was racing was as a second year junior. Um, yeah, we'd race our bikes as hard as we could, but then we'd cross the line and we'll have a laugh together in the evening. So I think you probably lose that as you go further up through the sport now. It's a very serious sport. Um, but yeah, don't lose sight of that.
I think that's awesome advice, man. Um, and what's next for you? What's the next chapter? Because you're still young, and I know before we started recording, you told me you did Ironman. Are you switching over to the triathlete life or what?
Yeah, so um, yeah, I did a half Ironman in Portugal last weekend. I'd been training for probably only 6 to 8 weeks going into that. Obviously, I come from a running background and I've got the cycling background as well. So it's something I'm looking to go into next year and hopefully get a pro license in long distance triathlon. And then, yeah, the thing that appeals to me about that is, I really enjoyed the race last weekend. Like, it's a super fun environment. My coach was originally a triathlete coach. So yeah, I've obviously got a lot of experience to gain from him. Um, and I can still do other things. I can still go and pursue a career or further education around it because yeah, I have full flexibility of what calendar I do. I can see quite far in advance what races I'm doing. And see, I can go and find my own sponsors, find brands that I really want to work with. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. Yeah, trying to get some brands on board to sponsor me for next season, where the main objective will just be to try and get a pro license in the long distance stuff, mainly at half Ironman for now. I don't think I can hack a full Ironman next year just yet. Um, and yeah, see how it goes. Really, no pressure on it. Just enjoy training, enjoy racing. I'm enjoying mixing up the training with some swimming and running at the moment too, which is nice. Um, and yeah, take a bit of a more relaxed approach to it, and also prioritize some other parts of my life that I'd neglected over the last 2 years with further education and my career. So yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome, man. Well, what is a good your Instagram handle just in case some brands are watching and they want to support you in the triathlon?
Yeah, yeah. My name on Instagram is Cormac Nisbet. My username is the Macmeister _. There's a funny story behind how that nickname came about, but um, yeah, the Macmeister _ is my Instagram handle, and then on YouTube is just Cormac Nisbet as well. Um, I've got some videos up there from the last year and racing abroad in Quick Step, so feel free to check them out.
Definitely. I'll put that up for everybody who's watching. And thanks for your time, man. Really appreciate you joining me.
Awesome. Cheers, Calvin. Thanks for the time.